Hello, and welcome to another video from Studio 67, brought to you by FACTS Institute for County Government. I'm Eric, and in this video, we're joined by FACT corporate partner Jones Edmonds, who address an important issue concerning county infrastructure and related property. Namely, how do we preserve and maintain these assets over time so their use life are maximized and facility replacement becomes more manageable and predictable? Using a process called Enterprise Asset Management, or EAM, our presenters discuss common concepts like lifecycle costs, maintenance priorities, and asset needs, but in a more strategic way under the umbrella of EAM. Our presenters include Brett Goodman, Executive Director of Strategic Growth, and Kelly Flowers-Haas, Marketing Director for Jones Edmonds. Thank you for joining, and I hope you enjoy the video.
Today, we're talking about something that touches every resident in your county. Whether they realize it or not, the infrastructure that keeps their daily lives running. From roads and pipes to pumps and parks, assets are the backbone of your community's well-being. And how you manage them strategically and proactively can mean the difference between reliable service and the rising costs. That's where Enterprise Asset Management, or EAM, comes in. This presentation is about how we can help counties like yours ensure certainty in service, affordability in operations, and confidence in planning, now and for decades to come. Let's get started. I'm Kelly Flowers-Haas, and I'm the Marketing Director at Jones Edmonds, and I'm excited to be joined by my colleague, Brett Goodman, our Executive Director of Strategic Growth. I'll cover the first half of today's presentation, focusing on what EAM is, why it matters, and the foundational strategies. Then I'll hand things off to Brett, who will walk through how EAM ties into high-level KPIs, long-range planning, and boardroom decision-making. Let's start with our purpose today. Why are we here, and what we hope you'll take away from this presentation? Our goal is fourfold, with each one connects directly to the challenges that you're navigating as county leaders. First, we want to make it clear and accessible overview of enterprise asset management, what it is, how it works, and why it matters now more than ever. Second, we'll show you how to leverage technology, such as cloud systems, mobile tools, sensors, and GIS to reduce inefficiencies and strengthen coordination between departments. Third, we'll focus on raising your level of service to the public. So EAM helps counties respond faster, plan better, and communicate more transparently because residents expect real-time, reliable service delivery. And finally, and most important, we'll show you how all this leads to lower total cost of ownership. That means few emergency repairs, smarter long-term investments, and more capital planning. Imagine being able to say, here's what we own, what it's worth, what condition it is, and how are we managing it. That's the clarity EAM provides, and that's the vision we have that we're going to unpack today. But before we dive in to enterprise asset management, let me quickly share who we are and why this matters. Jones Edmonds is an engineering and consulting firm with over 50 years of experience working with public agencies across Florida. We provide EAM-related services across a wide range of domains, such as utilities, and this includes water supply, wastewater treatment, pump stations, and leachate management, solid waste from landfill operations to recycling infrastructure, public works such as roads and stormwater systems, and then geospatial solutions such as critical for mapping, locating, and tracking assets in real time. EAM isn't hypothetical. It's happening now in Florida, and we are proud to help counties lead the way. So what exactly is enterprise asset management? So EAM is a systematic and strategic management of your physical assets. So these are your roads, your buildings, your pipes, your pumps, and it's throughout their entire life cycle. That means from the moment they're planned and designed through installation, daily operations, routine maintenance, and ultimately replacement or decommissioning. But here's the key. EAM isn't just a maintenance tool. It's a decision-making framework. It gives counties the visibility to answer critical questions. What do we own? Where is it? What condition is it in? What's it costing us to operate? And when will it need to be replaced? I want you to think of EAM as a digital health record for every public asset you manage. So let me share just a really quick story. So one Florida county had a lift station that failed twice in the same year. Without a system, each response was isolated. A crew went out, fixed the issue, and moved on. With EAM in place, they were able to see that the history, uncover a reoccurring electrical fault, invest in a permanent fix. That's the power of connected asset intelligence. And from a strategic perspective, EAM helps you align operations with capital planning. It's the difference between hoping your budget covers emergency and knowing you're investing wisely over time. So when we say enterprise asset management, we're not just talking about a database or a software. We're talking about the mindset shift towards proactive, transparent, data-informed leadership. So when we're talking about asset management, it's easy to assume that we're talking about just roads or pipes, but really EAM is much broader. It includes every physical asset your county owns or maintains, and many are high value, high risk, and deeply interpinned. So if we take a look at this list on the slide, we see roads, bridges, and culverts. So these are literally the foundation of transportation and emergency access. We also see storm drains and flood control systems. So this is critical for resilience during extreme weather. Public buildings, so courthouses, libraries, administration offices, these all have HVAC or plumbing and instructional maintenance. We have parks and rec facilities. This includes irrigation systems, lighting, benches, playground equipment. We have water and wastewater systems, so your plants, your pump stations, your metering infrastructure, your valves, your hydrants, utility networks. So this is above ground and below ground, and this is requiring constant inspection and repair. And finally, fleet vehicles and heavy equipment, which often represent some of our highest annual capital cost. So again, let me share a quick story. A county believed that it had 1,000 assets to manage. Once a complete asset inventory was performed using GIS and enterprise asset management integration, over 3,000 assets were identified. This includes dozens of electrical panels, security systems, lift stations, shoreline stabilization structures. Many had no documented maintenance history. And this is common. Counties often inherit legacy assets, some well documented, many not. EAM gives you the tools to find, track, evaluate, and prioritize them. So why does that matter? Because each of these assets come with a responsibility and risk. If you don't know what you own, you can't maintain it. And if you can't maintain it, you can't plan for it or defend it in a budget hearing. So remember, EAM doesn't just help you manage what you see, it helps you uncover what's hidden and manage it with confidence. So let's talk about where you, our county commissioners and public leaders, fit in the asset management picture. Your role isn't just about approving budgets or reacting to constituent calls. It's about setting expectations. So shaping the long-term priorities and ensuring every dollar invested into infrastructure delivers value, equity, and transparency. And here's what it looks like in practice. So you deliver reliable services at the lowest possible cost. Your communities rely on consistent access to water, safe roads, and reliable stormwater management. EAM helps ensure that all these essential services don't just function, but function efficiently and affordably. It also breaks down data silos. So leadership has the power to insist that departments stop working in isolation. When utilities, public work, and finance operate from a shared system, you get a full picture of performance and can align resources accordingly. You can also use meaningful KPIs. So these are key performance indicators to guide decisions. And so as a commissioner, you ask, are we spending too much on emergency repairs? What's the average response time for maintenance? Or which assets are nearing the end of their useful life? 4, we can protect quality of life and environment. So asset decisions aren't just technical, they're community decisions. EAM supports planning that's resilient, equitable, and responsive to long-term needs like climate adaptation, flood protection, and safe drinking water. And finally, you can build a culture of accountability. So ultimately, EAM helps elected officials show the public, here's what we're managing, what we've done, and why it matters. That's a kind of transparency and stewardship that builds trust and leads to smarter infrastructure solutions. So I want to walk you through this slide. This shows you how EAM supports the daily rhythm of a county operations, from service requests all the way to analytics. So let me walk you through this typical workflow. So a request comes in and a resident reports a pothole through like a mobile app, or a staff member notices a faulty air handler at a recreation center. These requests are captured digitally, so you have no more lost phone calls or sticky notes anywhere. These work orders are created, so supervisors review the request, check the asset history, and create a work order, and EAM helps prioritize it based on urgency, risk, or compliance needs. Scheduling and dispatch, so the system assigns the task to a qualified technician based on skills, availability, and geographic proximity. So for example, if a water crew is near a reported issue, they're dispatched to handle both. Then when they're there, the crews log work in the field. So using a tablet or a phone, crews complete the job, enter the notes, take before and after photos, and record time and materials used. All of this is logged directly into an asset record. Then the supervisor reviews and collects data, so they can review completed work in real time, validate costs, and identify recurring issues, All the data is now accessible for trend analysis, reporting, and KPI tracking. And finally, analytics for decisions to support. So at the end of the week or month, you can see exactly how many work orders were completed, where the resources were spent, and what infrastructure may be trending towards failure. This cycle enables continuous improvement. EAM not only helps you respond faster, but respond smarter. And over time, that translates to reduced cost, better planning, and more reliable public service. So one of the most power advantages of EAM is that it closes the information gap between the field and the boardroom. So think about your current operations. How long does a maintenance issue in the field take to become a data point in a budget conversation? Days, weeks, maybe never? With EAM, the flow of information is instant and structured, like the process we just discussed. This creates a real-time feedback loop. You're not just tracking what was done, you're now analyzing, why does this pump fail again? How much staff time did we spend on this intersection last quarter? Are we overspending on emergency repairs because we underinvested in preventative maintenance? It's no longer about, did we fix it? It's about what can we learn and how can we improve? And that's how EAM transforms operational activity into strategic insight, turning daily tasks into long-term value. It empowers your field and management teams to make better, faster, and more informed decisions. Okay, let's take a minute, let's pause, and let's get to the heart of why EAM matters. So the goal of EAM is simple but powerful: to help counties maximize the value of their assets while minimizing cost, risk, and inefficiency across all departments. We're talking about managing roads, pipes, parks, buildings, and fleet, all in one unified strategy. This goal isn't just to fix things faster, it's to extend asset life, reduce emergency costs, and deliver better service with greater certainty. And so again, it's breaking down data silos, it's leveraging technology, so you're using cloud-based systems and mobile tools, and you're driving strategic decisions. With EAM, capital planning becomes smarter. You can say, let's replace 10 stormwater pumps in 2026 based on the condition, not just age. And you can justify that in a 5-year of maintenance trends. So let's look at the facets of EAM. It's not just about fixing things when they break. It's the full frameworks that connect these multiple functions across organizations. So first, it's asset lifestyle management. So this is the foundation. From acquisition to disposal, you're tracking the age, condition, use, and value. So for example, if a pipe was installed in 1988 and it's now failing more frequently, EAM helps you plan its replacement and justify it by it in performance data, not just age. Work order maintenance. Every maintenance task becomes structured and traceable. You can assign, prioritize, schedule, and close work orders, all while tracking labor, materials, and time. Planning and scheduling. Instead of reacting to service calls, you're scheduling preventative and predictive maintenance weeks or months in advance. Reporting and analytics. Leadership teams get insights instead of anecdotes. You can report on trends like increased maintenance costs, failure rates, or service response time. Supply chain and inventory optimization. EAM tells you what parts you have, when you need them, and where they're located. This prevents overstocking or scrambling for parts during critical outages. You can even automate reorder points for high-use items. And then EAM tracks safety protocols. So confined space entries, lockout, tagout requirements, or environmental compliance tasks. If you have a lift station inspection due that requires PPE, the system can enforce it in the work order when it's assigned. And then finally, financial maintenance. You can tie costs directly to the asset performance. If your water treatment plant's cost per gallon treatment increases, EAM helps isolate the drivers such as energy costs, equipment downtime, or labor runs. These facets work together in one ecosystem, giving your team the visibility, accountability, and strategy to lead infrastructure into the future. So 4 core benefits of enterprise asset management systems. 1, cost reduction. By moving from reactive to preventative, you dramatically cut emergency repair costs. 2, enhanced staff productivity. So when crews know exactly what asset needs attention, what parts are required, and the history of past issues before they arrive on site, efficiency skyrockets. Less time spent chasing information means more time spent solving problems. Improve compliance, whether it's DEP, EPA, OSHA, or local stormwater regulations. EAM automates documentation and helps staff follow consistent protocols. If DEP comes in for a surprise inspection, a county can use their EAM system because every valve inspection, every backflow test, and even every permit log is stored and searchable in that system. And finally, strategic asset planning. The most overlooked benefit is that EAM helps leaders plan smarter. You can access lifecycle projections, asset deterioration curves, and capital forecasting models. Instead of guessing when to replace infrastructure, you can make data decisions that are financially sound and publicly defensible. So let's say you're asked, how much does it actually cost to deliver wastewater service? So from the utility manager's perspective, it starts with tracking direct costs, like lift stations, treatment plants, and labor. But those numbers live in different systems. So HR tracks compensation, finance tracks operation, and field teams close work orders. To get a true picture, you need to connect these siloed data sources, linking work orders, HR systems, and operational expenses. At the boardroom level, this data supports much bigger decisions. And so budget forecasting, affordability assessments, and whether you're meeting long-term performance cost. EAM ties it all together, giving both operational teams and leadership access to the same data translated into the KPIs that matter. So as we close out the first half of this presentation, let's talk about one of the most powerful tools you gain with enterprise asset management, and that's key performance indicators. For utility managers and really at any operational lead, KPIs turn raw data into clear direction. They help answer important daily questions like, are we meeting our service goals? Are we responding to emergencies fast enough? Are we putting our resources in the right place? For example, a utility manager might track mean time to repair. And so are crews completing work orders efficiently? Percentage of planned versus unplanned work. Are we scheduling maintenance or just reacting to emergencies? And then asset availability. Are critical systems like pumps or valves online and functioning when we need them the most? These KPIs don't just help at a department level, they allow managers to speak the same language as leadership. When budget time comes around, a utility director can show, we can cut emergency work orders by 30% this year because of scheduled maintenance, and here's the proof. That's a kind of insight builds trust. It moves conversations from anecdotal to analytical. And when counties begin making data decisions at every level, they become more resilient, more efficient, and more responsive to their communities. KPIs are just more than numbers. They're signals that guide continuous improvement.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Kelly, for a great introduction into what enterprise asset management is, and I hope it's apparent how important these types of systems are. The back part of the presentation, I'm going to zoom out a bit and talk about the broader drivers behind the need to manage assets more effectively. And then I'll walk through how we partner with communities and counties to build the foundations for implementing an EAM solution. So here's the big picture. All of us that are working in the public services are what I like to call, we're in the forever business. Residents depend on their public services to be there whenever they need them, and they expect those services to be both affordable, reliable, on time, and last forever. So delivering this level of service requires a massive investment in physical assets, whether it's underground infrastructure, roads, bridges, power plants, schools. Most counties are responsible for managing billions of dollars of infrastructure that must be continually reinvested in to meet those public expectations. So our role as a consultant is to help our clients not only stay in that forever business, but thrive at providing these services, which provide economic opportunities and truthfully economic advantages for the communities they serve. We've got extensive experience across the state helping our clients with managing their assets through implementing successful EAM programs and technologies. With the rapid progression of technologies, most counties have already begun investing in the foundations of a successful EAM program. The first building block is typically starts with measuring that data. So taking those pencil and paper information and bringing it into the digital world. Once that starts, the next step is to see how you manage those data in integrated systems and reliable systems. Once you have those business systems in place, we typically try to leverage those, and the next logical step is to integrate those so one system is talking to the next. This eventually paves the way for things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, where we can do predictive insights and automate and optimize operations. One of the things I want to point out here, though, is that most people want to jump to the technology first. They see the latest and greatest. My experience has been that without laying a solid foundation for how you're going to measure your data, manage your data, and ultimately integrate your data. Many of these EAM systems struggle. So unless you're taking a solid foundation, you want to be able to make sure that you're investing in the right place at the right time, or it will lead to a lack of adoption, lower level services for the same amount of investment. So I'm going to go through is how we typically implement a successful EAM. Our first step is really to do a discovery, document the current state and the desired state, and create a roadmap for success. We want to be able to move you from where you're at today to where you want to be. We typically do this and focus on 3 specific areas. One's people, the other is processes, and the third is technology. I can't overemphasize enough that the people and process matter more than the outcomes and the technologies at the beginning of an EAM implementation. So if you apply advanced technology on a broken or inefficient process, you're not going to be able to achieve the performance you're aiming at. Oftentimes, this actually makes things worse. The other thing that's important is an organization needs to assess its readiness for the tools and technologies. If you don't have the people familiar with the data or the workflows, without the capacity to use that technology, you need to slow down. So before investing in that next big tech solution, investing in your people, building the competencies, refining your processes, that once you do that, and once you have your processes in place, technology will be a force multiplier, not a mismatch. So as you take your roadmap and your journey to EAM, there are going to be times when you find an opportunity to accelerate and speed up, to slow down, or at some point stop, depending on the ability of your organization to adapt to change. One of the things that's really important with a successful EAM solution is to be able to have an agile change management system. Once we get through the processes and define our future state, the next step is to develop that scorecard. Kelly did a really good job of showing some key performance indicators that are typical of an EAM solution. The thing I want to stress, though, is key performance indicators aren't just numbers on a dashboard. They're meant to be a linkage of strategic direction to everyday work habits. And so I'm going to work through an example that shows how a boardroom strategy can lead to activities on the ground. So your board strategy will be, we want to provide reliable services to our citizens. That will relay back to a public works director that will implement a capital improvement plan. Well, a best practice for a capital improvement plan is typically to invest as much capital dollars as you're depreciating. So that would be a KPI that transcends and builds a budget for renewing and providing reliable services. Once that public works director has that budget, that KPI will now transcend and cascade to an engineering manager. That engineering manager will have a budget for a restoration program that he's held accountable or she's held accountable for 5% of that budget, delivering 5% of that budget annually. Then that will cascade to a water distribution manager who will be implementing and held accountable to water main replacements or miles of pipe per month. They'll transcend to a crew supervisor that will have a KPI for number of placements, number of work orders replaced by the due date. So that's how a strategic objective from a board level can transcend its way through the organization at every level. And you can drill into and drill out of where you're not meeting those KPIs, and that may have an impact on your ultimate strategy. As the implementation of EAM continues, one of the things that you'll start to see the fruits of your labor through what we call the one source of truth. As the EAM program becomes a reliable system where everyone across the organization can access the real-time information and make informed decisions, you start to leverage your investments in those technologies. And so here's kind of what that looks like is you have field operations collecting real-time information. They're the eyes and the ears of what's happening with your assets either installed above ground or below ground. They're capturing that information with cell phones, tablets, laptops. They're inputting that critical information directly from the field. That information starts to flow into engineers' hands, analysis hands, and they develop capital improvement plans and proactive maintenance strategies. These plans then inform operational budgets, which are ultimately presented and approved at the board level. This is a connected system that's accurate, accessible, timely, and intelligent, and it goes from the boots on the ground into the boardroom. So the data is, the decisions are driven by data, they're aligned by your processes and powered by your technology. Once you build those foundations, so now that you have the data, you have your business systems, and you start to make those intelligence, one of the things we're seeing a big push towards is the leap into the virtual world. So whether it's virtual reality, machine learning, or artificial intelligence, those are the next steps that a EAM program can bring you to with the right foundation. So here's just an example of a wastewater treatment plant that we've designed in a 3D model. And it's essentially acting as a digital twin for that facility. These digital twins allow us to simulate operations, anticipate future scenarios, and support better, faster decision-making. So an operator can use these models to predict outcomes and stay ahead of potential compliance issues. Even more, these environments can be used in virtual training, so you can improve your training effectiveness, which reduces time and cost. All this innovation is built on the foundation of a strong EAM program. When counties invest in an EAM program, they're not just maintaining the infrastructure, they're building the systems needed to uphold that social contract of delivering those essential public services in a reliable and affordable manner in perpetuity, which is a big deal for public service. So that's the end of our presentation. I really appreciate the opportunity to present both what EAM is and how we implement that.
Hey, thank you both. I mean, that was a fantastic presentation, Kelly. You did really good overview of what EAM is in asset management. And Brett, can we go back to that last slide? Because it prompts a question that I had earlier on this digital twin. So this is basically what you're saying is a virtual model of a community's sewage treatment facility, correct?
Correct. So the idea is, rather than doing things in 2D on paper and pencil, we build these systems in a 3D landscape so that once we complete the design, those things can be transferred into and seen how this will perform in 3D. Those can be taken into the next realm of, once water flows through this plant, is, how is it going to operate with different conditions?
So whether it's this type of facility or, let's say, some sort of stormwater attenuation project, is there ever a time when you or a local government is applying this EAM process and it's clear that the facility that they have in place is not operating the way it ought to be, but that really wasn't revealed to them until the EAM process was applied? Is that something that happens or has occurred? Does that make sense in my question?
Yeah, so the EAM allows you to, over time, understand what your performance metrics should be and when you're starting to trend away from those. So collecting that information in advance and using the intelligence of these systems, you can start to take predictive or evasive action depending on where you've been before and what you need to do in the future to avoid potential damages, protect people in harm's way. So it starts to, the information from these different systems, as you populate them, it becomes smarter and smarter and smarter to help you manage your real-time information as well as long-term capital planning.
And so you've got what I would call a community has a menu of options in which to choose from. So they have all kinds of facilities, as you mentioned. You've got roads, you got stormwater, you got water, and you got sewer. Is there a particular facility or facilities that are more dominant and more that communities are using the EAM process, at least in Florida?
So I would say that the application of EAM is common to all structures of public works, whether it's roads and bridges or pipes and pumps. There isn't there's not an area of public service that EAM doesn't apply, even with building systems. The one thing in terms of I would say the digital environment, we see a lot of growth in the water, wastewater utility world with being able to manage and design and take what's in the construction plans and bring those into an asset inventory, your GIS. But there is a wealth of opportunity in a lot of different ways to leverage the EAM for all departments within a public government.
And let's say when you go into a community and they're not, I think Kelly, you had mentioned that there was one area where they were inventorying what they thought were 1,000 assets. I don't know what the assets were. You mentioned electrical panels and what have you, but once the work started, you had over 3,000 found. So what is when you work with a community, what does that process actually look like? They say, hey, we want you to come in and help us with X, and we think we have, this number out there, and here's where they are. It's a legacy system. It's old as heck. How do you go in there and begin working with the community and discover you got all these other assets that are out there?
Yeah, I'm going to let Brett answer that. He actually is right now over our EAM team. And so he's worked with multiple implementations of what we're currently using as our implementation system, which is CityWorks. So I'll let Brett answer that.
Yeah, so in that first part of building discovery, right, is everyone starts from a different foundation. And once you start to meet with staff at all levels to map out the plan for what your current state is and what your future state needs to be, one of those things is, what do your asset inventories look like? So you start to pull in whether it's legacy information or word of mouth, and you start to, if somebody has a geographic information system that already has assets populated in it, then you start to trust but verify that system. If somebody's starting from the scratch of, all we have is paper and pencil and a bunch of information that we need to cobble together from our tribal knowledge, then you start with an asset inventory. You put boots on the ground, you start to take people into the field and make sure you're verifying things. And that's where Kelly's story comes to light, is oftentimes it's, we thought we had only this stuff. Well, as it turns out, we actually have a lot more assets, and we want to inventory those that they've never been on our GIS before. So the discovery phase is really important, and it goes back to some of the point I was trying to make earlier, is as you map through that discovery and you try to implement your EAM solution, there are going to be times where you're absolutely going to, okay, there's more assets here than we thought. We need to stop, slow down, and go back and make sure that we've categorized all those and make sure it still fits with the solution that we want going forward. Asset inventory is a huge part of the foundation of a good EAM program. Then it's harvesting that data and keeping the data up to speed in a business system, and then ultimately making that intelligent, that ultimately drives a successful EAM program.
In terms of maintaining that data, so they collect the data, it's important, but if you don't maintain it over time, you kind of wasted your investment. Is there, once that system is put in place, is it up to the local government to maintain that, or is that something Jones Edmonds comes in and helps provide assistance with that?
So both is one of the things that we want to empower our clients to be able to use the data and build on the systems that we provide. Sometimes over time, there may be like a checkup where we come in and say, hey, the assets, we need to either reset a solution or help with categorizing and implementing either a new software solution. But the idea is that going back to the, focusing on the people, the processes before you get the technology, is you really need to have those processes ironed out. Who's going to own the data? Who's going to update that in time? And then you can put technology on top of it and really multiply that effect. If you do not have those people and processes in place, or they don't have the competencies to use those either advanced software tools or sometimes just basic software tools, then you're really over investing in technology until you build the foundation of, okay, here's how we're going to have the data, here's who's going to do that, here's how those processes work, and then now select the technology. So to answer your question, is we really would like, or what's the most successful with most of our clients is they've identified the people that are going to ultimately take this next step within the organization, so they no longer need a consultant to hold their hand through that process.
My sense is that the return on investment for something like this is pretty high if I were a local government, because we're talking about being able to maintain a facility over time so you don't have to replace it immediately, because that sometimes is the easy solution. Has any local government, come back and said, hey, we've invested this much in EAM and it has saved us this? Return on investment's very high. Just curious about that.
So a lot of the immediate return is being able to identify where the problem is and dedicate the funding and build business cases around that. So I'd say the return on investment is more of an efficiency of money flowing and cash being spent at the problem that that you have from the boots on the ground. That type of return on investment, a lot of times it's tough to quantify. However, it starts to show up whenever you are your KPIs start to indicate, I've got more reliable services. I have less outages during an emergency situation. Those types of things are almost intangible, hard to calculate, but they happen through building that data and making data-driven decisions to funnel investments towards a reliable infrastructure solution.
Right, that is a fantastic answer. I'm thinking of a solid number, but that's perfect. So appreciate you being able to respond that way. My last question, and this is kind of maybe a curveball and maybe something that y'all have encountered or maybe anticipate, but I'm just thinking about when you begin inventorying assets and that sort of thing. I'm just trying to think of, now we got hurricane season coming up. Is there any disaster integration that y'all have seen or can imagine as a part of this? And I don't have anything specific in mind, but I'm just thinking out loud. So
yeah, there's a lot of great examples of how these types of systems really help you be more resilient during an emergency situation, as well as recover faster, and more importantly, be reimbursed quicker. So these systems are able to, as a emergency event unfolds in your community, if your crews are versed in and have the mobile technology or something to gather information, kind of be that boots on the ground, the eyes and ears of the storm or the emergency event, as you're working the problem, that information is getting moved back electronically and digitally into an emergency operations center. What resources do we need? How do we muster more people or more resources from other areas and keep track of that as you go through most people in the emergency response industry, the planning P, and the logistics of getting more people in the right places to solve the problem. This starts to accelerate that process. Even when, even in a power outage, you get some, you might not get all the digital data to transfer through cell phones and communications, but having somebody, whether it's not in the field or in the EOC, to be able to start to understand where the problem is and the logistics that are needed to go solve and remedy that emergency situation. So that's one facet. The other facet is, as you are collecting that information and putting it into a digital framework, you start to be able to comply with your NIM system, your National Emergency Response Systems, where you can then report on the disaster, start to accumulate cost, recovery cost, and start to put together. Most folks in the hurricane industry understand this form that FEMA uses for 214s. So the 214 form is really a documentation of all the things either your mutual aid did or your boots on the ground people did and your staff, and funneling that in through the FEMA process through EOC to be able to get quickly reimbursed. That is a huge asset, or that's a huge benefit of putting together these EAM projects.
Yeah, Brett, that's great, because I was only thinking just in terms of response, but what you just hit on is the recovery aspect. And as communities are developing their project worksheets, there's typically a lot of questions about this or that facility that you're requesting reimbursement from. And if you've got a nice maintenance record in the EAM that says this is the age of the facility, we've maintained it over time, we've done everything responsible, but it got knocked out, I think that's good documentation that you work with the FEMA reps to make sure you get, you know, all the money that you're entitled to under the Stafford Act. So that's something I didn't think about, and that's a fantastic selling point. So thank you for that. I don't think I have any other questions. I think this kind of ends up at the end. If y'all have anything else you want to add?
No, we just appreciate you guys' support, and thank you for allowing us to do this.
Yes, appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. So Jones Edmonds, thank you so much for being a fantastic corporate partner. And we look forward to the next webinar we hope is coming up soon. So thank you again, guys, both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.